Welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name's Matt,
And my name is Jadrian.
and it is early May, and we are recording this one day before it comes out, which is rare for us. This is actually the day we should talk about current events because it'll still be current the day that it comes out, but I don't know that we're planning on that. How is everything at Virginia Tech?
Today is officially the last day of classes, which means there's a Metallica concert tonight, which also means that I did not have class today because there was a Metallica concert tonight.
And are you
So
going?
no, I'm not going. No,
Okay.
this is something that this always cracks my students up. I teach a class that has 600 people in it. I looked at my numbers the other day. I think I've taught 11,000 students or something over the
Yeah.
past 10 years. I don't like large crowds. I do not like being around a lot of people. I have somehow selected an occupation that
Yeah.
places me in front of 600 people.
That's
That is
funny.
not my preference. I do not like being in large crowds. I do not want to go to the Metallica concert. So
Okay.
I will be
And the funny part
I'll be
is
staying
you love
home.
going to sports stadiums, though.
I do, but one of my favorite things to do is actually I get the cheapest ticket possible, and I love to sit in the very top. So if
Yeah.
you look at a lot of the pictures that I'll post on Twitter of like stadiums I've gone to, it is usually me at the very top with nobody else around me.
Sure. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. It is the Wednesday finals are over at Susquehanna,
Lucky.
and students graduate Saturday. So it's senior week on campus.
I love
Um,
it. That's us
I'm,
on tomorrow. We have a senior reception. I like to call it the senior brunch. The
yeah.
staff do not like that I call it a brunch, even though we're having brunch from 10 to noon. They
That's a
don't
brunch.
like that I call it a graduation brunch. They want to call it a graduation reception. But
Yeah. 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 That's a
brunch sounds way more fun. The students want to go to a brunch.
they
They don't
want.
want to go to a reception.
How often do you get to go to a brunch?
Exactly.
Going back to the your things, I actually saw Metallica in concert way back in the day.
Was it amazing?
I was 16 and I was more of a Guns N' Roses fan, and it was Guns N' Roses Metallica. So
Okay.
I liked I thought it was good. This is not from a fan. The problem, we get there early because I don't know why we got there so early, but you get there an hour before Faith No More played for 45 minutes, and then there's a gap for an hour before Guns N'
Mhm.
Roses comes out for 2 hours. And I thought the crowd was somewhat exhausted, although the Seek and Destroy was pretty incredible. I don't know if you know that song from
Mhm.
Metallica, but the guitarist had injured his hand in a fireworks accident. So he couldn't do his normal guitar work, but he was there. And so he went out and into the crowd, and they have the part where they'll yell search and seek and destroy. And so I would yell out the search and, but then he'd give it to audience members who would yell the next part. And it's like, those moments you remember at concerts. That was a pretty
Yeah.
awesome moment. But
No, sounds cool.
I
I
don't know
know
that,
one song, so that's why I didn't
uh,
go.
uh, kind of curious which,
It's
Enter
Interstate.
Sandman. Yeah.
Interstate Man's the only song I
Yeah.
know.
The one that they play at Virginia Tech. So
Yeah.
I know a couple others. But that's where a few years old, like they were really big in the late 80s, early 90s. But what is your beverage of choice on this fine early May afternoon?
It's really nice outside. Nice sun. It's not too
Yeah.
hot. Got some sun this past weekend. So I'll show you that. I've already pre-poured it. I have not started drinking because I'm drinking a tall one. But I'm going back to my friends at the East End's Brewing Company out of Pittsburgh to try again the one I messed up last time, the pickle beer. So it is not a
Okay.
slush this time. It has actually just been cold. So
Pickle beer.
a dill pickle sour.
I'm going, I guess, somewhat classic for an IPA, Trogs Perpetual. So just
I almost grabbed an IPA. I was real close.
a
Yeah, that
good,
tastes way better than last time.
okay, when it's not a slushy and
Yeah,
frozen and all
the
that.
weird slushy I think messed up the water flavor combination. That is a dill cucumber sour. I like it. It's good.
Yeah,
It's a
cool.
a boozy pickle is what I'm having.
The boozy pickle. I like it. I like it. Well, today we are going to go through a couple different topics, but had the idea for one. It is for those who know theater or really know theater. This is the month between when the Tony Award nominations happen and the Tony Awards happen, so Tony month. Just kind of an exciting time. There's all these new shows that are out, and you see who's gotten some press, and you try to figure out some good ones to potentially go see. My wife and I went and saw a couple shows on Broadway, one of which I think was the worst I've ever seen, and one was potentially one of the best I've ever seen. So I
Mhm.
guess I got the mix, and I'll take that trade off. It was it's worth it to see something I didn't like for something I loved. So,
Question real quick. The
yep,
one you didn't like, did
yep.
you stay the whole way through?
I was the first time I think on Broadway I ever said we could leave, but I'm like, what do
Okay.
you? I mean, we couldn't get into anywhere else at
Right.
that point. I thought about leaving 10 or 15 minutes in, but I'm like, do I really want to disturb my wife in case she likes it and leave to go somewhere else? If it was just me, I think I would have left to
Okay.
go buy a ticket to another show and pay twice. Um, I just thought it was that bad.
Hmm.
I felt so. I have no qualms sharing this. It's Buena Vista Social Club, which has gotten
That is,
good reviews.
yes, I was. I'm glad you shared it. It is nominated. Those of you who are not
Yeah,
in the
10
Tony
times.
space, it is nominated for best musical. It is
Yep,
nominated for best book of a musical, and I can't scroll fast enough to
it's
see. I
got
at least saw those two at the top.
yeah, it's got eight others. So a musical, right? There's acting, and then the music advances the plot.
Hmm.
Uh, did you know Buena Vista Social Club was an album? I
No,
didn't know it was an album. It's not in English.
it's in
There's not a
Spanish.
single word of it in English,
I assume
and
it's in Spanish.
it's in Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's me being stupid for not knowing this, but I kind of assume if I go to a show on Broadway that's a musical that it's going to be in English. And, if you want to do something in Spanish, hey, that's fine. Let me know. I won't buy the ticket, or at least I'll be prepared. So that was frustrating. It's not good to be upset when
Mm,
you're in a show.
okay.
So that was the bigger thing. So a lot of people obviously have liked it, and I
Hmm.
think but then I saw Dead Outlaw, and Dead
That was
Outlaw
the other
is
one
one
on
of
there.
the best things I've ever seen. It's just
Okay.
incredible. It's quirky, it's good music, it's good acting. It's just that was so
Yeah.
well worth the trade-off. So,
Also nominated for best musical. Well, now I'm kind of curious if you've seen the other three.
have not.
Okay.
I will eventually.
Okay.
They're newer ones, but the they all sound good too. Definitely want to get to. The other three are Operation Mincemeat, Death Becomes Her, and maybe Happy Ending. So.
Hmm. So I have a question for you then, in terms of, I mean, this will lead into our conversation a little bit. The next time you go to New York, is a show having a Tony nomination enough of a pull to get you to go to that show? Or would you go to another one that other people have talked about that wasn't nominated? Like, how much is the draw for you?
It's a
You're
huge draw. It's
right,
a
you're a
huge
big Broadway fan.
draw.
That's why, right? Like,
Yeah,
you definitely like it matters.
it definitely matters. And the reason I think it matters is I've seen good shows. We saw Boop the musical, which has three nominations, but not Best Musical. I thought it was a great show.
Mhm.
Um, there are great shows that don't get nominated, and there's subjectivity to it, right? Before the nominations, some people thought that Real Women Have Curves might have gotten the a Best Musical nomination over one of the others, or Boop might have, right? When people are speculating, but it is a big signal of quality,
Mhm.
and it's it's the most prestigious prize on Broadway, and getting one of those nominations, it sends a huge external signal that this entity has verified the quality
Yeah.
of that, and that's part of actually one of the projects I'm working on was is trying to look at, because well it's valuable. There are people like me who do this, and there's some studies out there that have tried to look at the impact of Tony Award nominations and wins, and they show Tony nominations. I mean, different studies have come up with different estimates, but the one that I'm thinking off the top of my head was a 2009 study, and it said a nomination is worth $16,000 per week shortly after, and but then a win would be worth quite a bit more.
Hmm.
And 16,000, that was 15 years ago. So what is that,
Yeah.
25,000 now approximately? And that's a bump of you could look up the grosses. I think Dead Outlaw had 500,000 in gross revenue, ticket sales last week. 25,000, that's a big boost, right?
Mhm.
5% extra because of that nomination. And every place is advertising it. But yeah, I'm one of them. It's not the sole factor, but it is a huge deal in terms of thinking like, oh, we definitely should see these shows. They could win Best Musical. So
I'm kind of curious then on that sense is for you, again, I'm going to ask you personally, since I guess this may be future research that is coming down the line. Is there a particular Tony, I'll say either award or nomination that you care about more? So like, would you prioritize a Tony nominee for best musical Oh, sorry, they
Mhm.
didn't win, but they're
Yeah.
nominated. Would you go to that over the Tony Award for Best Score, assuming that they're different, right? Like the problem is that like
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
the best musical is the best score, but like, do you
It
care
could.
about it
Last year
being an
was
award?
different.
Okay,
Last year was a different one.
so let's say you've never seen either one, right? You have the
Yeah.
opportunity to see a nominee in, I'll say, a higher category or an award winner in one of the smaller categories. Which one do you prioritize?
I mean, I think the best musical revival, best play revival. I think those are the ones that are probably worth the most money to
Right.
people, and that most people would prioritize. Best score, that's the music. That's a pretty good one. And last year's winner of book is like the writing of the book itself that they're
Hmm.
reading from, and score is the music. Last year, the winner of score and book didn't win best musical, which is
Hmm.
not common
Yeah.
because usually but there's other parts to it. There's the
Right.
choreography, there's the direction, there's the sound design, there's the sets, there's everything else. And last year, and my guess is it was super duper close on the
Yeah.
votes. We don't see what the vote results were, but it was probably very close.
Hmm.
um I, no, and what I've been like the paper that I'm working on that is going to get submitted soon, that I've kind of teased a little bit on LinkedIn recently, because the Tonys are worth so much money, then I thought it's kind of interesting. What is the award worth? And this relates to a different paper did with looking at Cutthroat Kitchen and how much was winning Cutthroat Kitchen worth. And so, what influences the ability to get a Tony Award nomination, which I find pretty fascinating just to think about. The timing of when a show
Yeah.
first performs is enormous.
Hmm.
So, if shows start more recent, they are more likely to get a nomination
Okay.
versus a show. The season goes, it's for shows that opened in basically May, the beginning of May of 24 to the end of April of 25. That's who's eligible this year. Shows that are more recent, what we found, shows that are more recent, far more likely to get nominated. However, that the all of this effect seems to be because many shows will not stay open long enough. So, but a good example from this year, and this year's season isn't in the data, it's through last year's season. There was a revival for Once Upon a Mattress that got very good reviews, and I saw it. It
Right.
was a good show, and it had Sutton Foster, who has won Tony Awards, like for best. She's won Tony Awards. She's a superstar on Broadway. Um, got completely shut out. Didn't get a single nomination,
Hmm.
and that's um, it closed in like December. That stuff happens. So, but it's kind of interesting. The key question is, well, would shows know this and try to rig the game? And well, I think shows would. They kind of know this. People know that this might happen. However, you got to get into a theater. This isn't
Yeah.
like a movie set where say, yeah, we will release on May 22nd or whatever, or whenever you want to release. We want it to be a summer blockbuster. You have to find the theater that works, that's going to let you in. And the theater might say, hey, do you want to come in? And if you say no, then like, okay, we're going to go to this other show because they're going to want to let us in. And you can gamble that there'll be something later for you. But to check for the endogeneity, looked at whether the reviews from the New York Times were more favorable the later it released, right? Because if it was higher quality shows are choosing to open later, then you would expect that to happen, but that relationship didn't hold. So that's kind of a fun thing. And the
Yeah.
percentages are pretty sizable on
Hmm.
this. So that's kind of a fun paper that I'm just getting the finishing touches to get submitted.
No, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking of the movie version and then I completely forgot that this is obviously live, so you can't just you you can pick the dates, but not really.
Yeah,
That's an
it's
interesting part. I hadn't considered that. So I know in the Grammys, Oscars version of the movie theater version, that there is a lot of like politicking that happens with voters. Is that the same thing in the Tonys? Is it
I
sort of going out to Tony voters and saying like, vote for this, we'll give you a Rolex, things like that? Does that
I
happen?
I don't know for sure. I don't
Okay.
think it happens to the same scale, probably because there's not as much money involved. I I've heard anecdotally that right there are times that some shows have really put on a hard campaign and other shows might get upset about it, like
Mhm.
if that's happening. So shows will have campaigns, and certainly I was in when we were in New York, we arrived Friday, the nominations were Thursday. Everywhere had, you know, 10 not 10 Tony nominations or 7 Tony nominations, including Best Musical or Good Night and Good Luck has George Clooney in it. It's a play on Broadway right now,
Mhm.
which not coincidentally is one of the most expensive tickets on Broadway right now because George Clooney is a big draw. He got a nomination, and that one, of course, highlights that he got the Best Actor in a Play nomination. So,
Yeah.
so they will campaign a little bit. They'll try to get people onto awards shows. They have to, and like, if anybody's in the industry and is listening to this, you can correct me if I'm wrong on anything, but it's my understanding that all of the Tony voters get free tickets to every show. But they are expected to go then to every show. Um, Now I don't know what happens if they didn't catch a show that has already closed. I don't know how that all could work, but or were they given the tickets way back when? I don't know. I don't know exactly how that works. Uh,
Matt is trying to figure out that real comment is Matt wants to know how do you become a Tony Award voter, and
oh
will you
gosh,
take an economist
how
as one of
cool would that be?
yeah.
That would be the dream.
Well, so if let's see, I've got some information for you. There are 831 eligible
Yep.
voters, a number that fluctuates slightly from year to year.
But for the nominations, it's in. I just saw this, so it's in the low 50s, I think, the nominating committee.
Okay.
It's a different group, or at the very least, a very small subset. Yeah, somehow I don't think my writing Broadway and economics book is gonna do it. But if anybody thinks otherwise, that would be pretty awesome.
I think you should get a ballot. I think this should
Yeah.
be sort of like the baseball. It should be like the baseball writers, right? Like I think the
Yeah.
Baseball Hall of Fame is voted on by the Baseball Writers Association, and I
Yeah.
think they should have
I
a.
don't know that I want the power. Like,
Yes, you do.
if I was the
Yes,
decide,
you
like, I
do.
would want to not be the deciding vote. Like, often people go to the polls and, you talk about, well, it's so unlikely that your one vote would influence it. Man, that would terrify me if I'm the reason one show won over the other. I shouldn't be trusted with that kind of power.
Matt, let me ask you a trivia question, since I know how much you
Okay.
love trivia. I haven't got to do trivia with you in a while.
We haven't done trivia.
Um, do you know the first show that won Best Musical?
No, would it be about 75 years ago?
It was awarded in 1949, so the first Tony was 1947,
Is it a
but the Best Musical
Rogers?
came
Is
out
it a
2 years later.
Rogers and Hammerstein? Can you give me that?
If you let me Google this, I can tell you. Um,
I'm
it
wondering.
was not a musical by Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Okay. Um,
I could tell you who it was by, but I mean, like, I might say their name wrong.
sure.
So,
Who is it by?
Spiewik and Spiewik, Spuak. Those are
I
the authors.
I mean, I was thinking, is that around the era of like Oklahoma or something like that, which is or
It is
South
a musical
Pacific.
version of a show of a play.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have guessed. I mean, South Pacific or like Oklahoma were the ones that I thought might have been in that time frame, but I don't really know. What is it?
If I give you the characters, right, I can give you a little bit more.
Oh boy. Okay.
Lily Vanessa, Bill Calhoun, Frederick Graham are the characters of the show.
Names
Like
sound
that.
familiar.
Like,
Gosh, I'll
Kiss
probably
Me,
seen this too. Who knows?
Kiss Me, Kate.
I have seen. Have I? I think I have seen Kiss Me, Kate. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Tells you how. I mean, I thought it was a good show, but it tells you how memorable I found that show when I saw it. But
Well, they're
um,
the first winners ever of the Tony.
okay.
Well,
No.
the Tony for Best Musical, because I know you're a musical person.
Yeah, it's a musical. Although we bought tickets are to go see "Oh Mary," which is one of the nominated plays in June as well. So we do see some of the plays.
I
They're
don't know if
pretty
I got
fun.
to tell you this. I don't. I feel like we completely missed this conversation from last year.
Yeah.
Went and saw a musical last fall and absolutely loved it. Blown away. I was
Awesome.
blown away with how good it was. Went and saw Come From Away.
Oh, it's a great show.
I loved it. That
Yeah.
was so well done. It came to Roanoke, and so we had tickets for Shrek that got rained out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the other ones. where Shrek was rained out. Uh, the one about the singer, I can't think of her name.
Tina,
Tina,
maybe.
saw Tina,
Yeah,
and then Come From Away, and then I still have tickets for Chicago in the summer, but that's fine. I've seen Chicago before. I'm
yeah.
not. I'm gonna go
I
see
love
it, but
I Chicago. It's interesting, and that is the show my wife and I have the single biggest divergence of opinions on it. I
which
think Chicago on Broadway and is brilliant. Like
okay.
one of the best. It's just the story's just fun. The dancing's amazing. The songs are great. My wife hates it. Like we were trying to think through what are the shows we have the biggest difference of opinions on. The opposite way was we saw Gypsy with or not Ethel Merman, Patty LaPone, who um, I like. Can people understand what Patty's saying? And it's I my wife loved it, adored it, and I wasn't the biggest fan, but differences. So
Come From Away was amazing.
but it's an interesting month. Broadway's big business. New York tourism is struggling right now
Hmm.
because fewer people are coming into the U.S. and it's an interesting time. There are a lot of shows. There's pretty much every Broadway house right now is open. So there's a lot of shows competing for these ticket dollars. You can get some pretty good deals if you're going to Broadway now. And the whole economics of the entire industry just fascinates me. But the Tony
Yeah.
Awards are a big deal and a
Well,
big
so, and I wonder because I've seen these things about with sort of all the tariff stuff going on that international travel is way down, domestic travel is down, and I always wonder about cities like New York that, especially Broadway, that rely so heavily on sort of
yeah.
tourists coming to see shows. What sort of impact that? Because I'm pretty sure if not every time, almost every time I go to New York, I try to see a show. Like I don't. I mean, I obviously go in I go see Roanoke when it's on tour and stuff.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I feel like when it comes to New York, I'm pretty sure I have definitely, I feel very confident saying I have gone to see more Broadway shows, musicals, plays than I have sporting events. I I don't need to see the Mets every time I go to New York,
No,
but I
no.
do want to go see a show. So I
Yeah, yeah,
feel like I've seen probably a dozen things, and I don't go very often. I
yeah.
wonder what that's going to do, I guess, with how big of an impact that would actually have.
Yeah, I mean, depending how much anybody wants to get into the weeds, if you just Google Broadway grosses, and that might actually even be the link. You get to see the week by week
Hmm.
comparisons and how much. So I'll ask a trivia question of you.
Ooh,
Don't go to that.
I already opened it.
Ah, have you seen it then?
I just saw the number. I was about to tell you what it was.
What the ticket price or
Oh, no,
the
I saw the attendance, but the ticket price is right underneath it. So,
Okay, yeah, yeah. So the average ticket price is 130, which I think it's always interesting to me on ticket prices and have Broadway ticket prices gotten more expensive? And my argument would be no, they haven't.
hmm.
On average, maybe they have, and premium seats have, but I think Broadway houses have become bigger price discriminators.
Yeah.
So if you are willing to be flexible in what show you see, you can get a great price to a ticket.
Hmm.
If you have to see a particular show on a particular day, and that's a popular show, um, then you could pay a lot of money for a show. If you have to see Othello, which has Jake Gyllenhaal and Denzel Washington, well, first you're not getting a ticket through the theater right now. But the through the theater, that ticket price, the average ticket was $367. The top ticket was $897.
Reminds me of when I went to see Harry Potter, and I was just like,
Yeah.
God, this better be one of the best shows I've ever seen.
That's a pricey ticket, and
And I'm
you
gonna
can't even
listen.
get
I'm a
in.
Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
I don't think it was worth it. It was good. It was very good.
Did you see the two-part one or the one-part one?
I think
They
I saw
used
the
to be two separate. You had to go like
oh
in the
one.
morning and at the night.
No, I
Okay.
saw the one.
Yeah, and I saw it in London, and so I had to go to a matinee, and then I had a couple hours break, and then I had to see the evening one. And I really thought it could have been one show, but
I was surprised. I mean, I love Harry Potter. And I was just
yeah.
like, why did I pay so much money for this?
Um,
Well,
no, I
Matt, so
thought
I would say I am going to New York in a month. So
that
going over
on.
to England to do a talk. And
Nice.
flights from Roanoke to London are not exactly affordable. But I can get a very affordable flight from Roanoke
Newark.
to New York because I have Delta miles, so I can pay for
Okay.
that. and then I'm gonna fly from New York to London. So I gave myself a little bit of a cushion in case my flight doesn't get there. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I have basically 2 days. I have the day that I get there. Actually, I mean, I could probably do that. I get there at like 9 o'clock and I'd leave at 6 p.m. So I could do like a matinee. That's probably too risky. I'm not gonna let me not do that one. On the way back though, I come back on a Saturday, and then I don't leave until the Sunday at like 9 p.m. So I've got all day Sunday.
We've got all day. Yeah.
Yeah. What should I
Plenty of
see?
time for a show. Um,
I haven't
I,
seen much, so whatever you recommend is
I
fine.
love Dead Outlaw. I thought that
Get
was
out.
a wonderful, very quirky, weird show.
When
Um,
will the Tony Awards be announced?
they will be announced about June 10th, approximately,
Oh,
whatever
so
that
maybe
Sunday
so if
is.
that wins the Tony, then maybe I won't be going to that one.
Yeah,
That might be too
it's
hard.
not the favorite, and I haven't seen
Okay.
right the others. I think it's Sunday, June 8th. What day are you there?
June 15th,
Okay.
1 week later.
Yeah. You never know.
Okay, I might text you then. I might say, hey,
Yeah,
here's my
yeah.
options.
No, and I mean there's a lot of great shows there right now. So I don't think you'll be
Well,
there. So
Matt, let me share people. So there's people here who are not big musical fans. I've always been curious about this. And maybe you can help explain this since you talked about price discrimination. Not every time I go, but fairly often, I get my tickets from TKTS, that little
yep,
booth.
yep.
Um,
It's a
what's
good
going,
form of it.
how does that work? Right. So I sort of know roughly. So maybe you can explain to other people. So anybody who is thinking about going to New York, if you're going one off, you
Yeah.
want to go, but you don't want to pay what Matt just said, the $300. There's a lot of good shows on there.
Yes.
What sort of where does it just feels like from an arbitrage standpoint? It feels weird that these tickets are available at the price that they're available for.
Well, so those are day of tickets though,
Hmm.
right? So this is the extra seats that are available. So uh if the show has their regular price for tickets, and if you show up to the theater, you'll pay whatever the regular price for the tickets are. And if you buy online, the regular price is higher and they charge you a fee. For whatever reason, if you just show up to the theater, you can often, even if it's in advance, get a cheaper price than, which in a way is probably a different form of price discrimination. But, you
Hmm.
know, this extra agency gets a fee. But it seems weird because why would in person be less expensive? But, anyways, the, but going in, so we were between Buena Vista Social Club and Operation Mincemeat for Friday, and we had our Saturday ticket already in advance from a different way of price discrimination, which I can share in a moment. Those two shows clearly hadn't sold out all of their tickets, and they figured some revenue is better than no revenue.
Yeah.
And so I get up there, and this is just like top of seeing the wrong show. It's just bad luck. So Operation Mincemeat was going to be our first choice. They had a tickets that were separate. One would have been orchestra, one would have been rear mezzanine, and we're like, well, the other one has two tickets together. Let's go with the other one.
Hmm.
And so then
But
the
you go to
tickets
TKTS. You
CKTS booth. Yeah, that's I went
okay?
there Friday. Yep. I went there on Friday to go. Sometimes I'll do that. If you want cheap tickets, sometimes you can do what's called rushing a show,
Hmm.
which takes some time. And I know friend of the pod, Brian O'Rourke, has rushed shows before. A limited number of seats will be released the day of on many shows for anywhere. I mean, often it's 30, 35, 40, or $45. And sometimes they're partial view. It might be you're in the second row,
Yeah.
so you got a great seat, but it's you're going to miss a portion of the action because of the way the stage is set up.
Yeah.
But still, you're in the second row. I mean, you're getting spit on.
Music's great.
Yeah, I mean, you really see them, and so we've done that. I've done that a number of times. For educators, there's the group that runs TKTS
Hmm.
has it's called Theater Development Fund, TDF.org. And for an annual fee of maybe 40 to $50, if you're an educator, if you're a union member, or in certain other fields, you can become a member, and then they will release tickets in advance
Ooh.
for it's about $60 is what we paid for our Dead Outlaw ticket per ticket. Those are shows that obviously are struggling a little bit more, right? They need to sell.
Hmm.
They're willing to say, "Hey, okay, the people who are a part of this group and what you do is you pay and the day of essentially you get the best tickets they have at that moment in time. And they're usually pretty great seats. It's kind of like the tickets booth. So it's a different way to price discriminate. It's it's a fascinating way that They work. A lot of Broadway houses now, and this is somewhat new, will have premium seats. So the
Hmm.
person who just simply doesn't care about the money, and they're like, "Hey, we want to go see the show, and um, what about the best seats?" And like, "Okay, yeah, they're $350. Sounds good. We'll take them."
Yeah.
And they'll some so their Broadway houses, I think, have done a pretty good job of trying to extract as much money as they can extract from every single person in the
The
process.
TKTS booths have always been fascinated by this because, like, in my mind, each of these theaters are separate entities,
Yeah.
and yet they all sort of like they have this like shared central ticketing system that they all kind of agree, yes, we'll let these tickets go. So like, look, I'm assuming the percentages are accurate, but some of these are saying 50% off, 60% off, and it's always so strange to me because again, I'm not a big theater person. I just want to go see a show.
Sure.
And so for me, it makes the most sense to go to
It could,
this and look
it
at the list and go, that one, I'd like to go see
it
that.
is great. Of course, you do. Like I spent 45 minutes in line. I mean, you do have to spend some
Every
time in
every
line.
time I've gone, the line's been short.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
going at a good time, I think.
I guess
I,
you're going at a good time.
I've maybe only waited in line like 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's great.
But I think part of it is also too, it's very possible that maybe the times I've gone are like right before the show starts instead of
It's
like the
it's
first one
usually
of
a
the
little
day.
lower
So
then.
the list
Yeah.
is much small. I will say I'm looking at the list that's on here and I'm like, these are not, there's never this many shows when I'm standing in line. And so it's very possible that maybe when I'm there at the end of the day and I've got like five choices left. But for me, I usually just walk up and I ask the person at the booth. I just say, "What of what's left? What's the best one to go see?" And I let them pick for me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not in it like you, right? I don't know who's been Tony
Yeah.
nominated
Yeah.
and which ones have won. I'm like, of the five that are up there, I've seen that one. Of the other four, which one should I go see? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I go with, I do the same thing at baseball games. Like it's the same idea. I'm not going to games that are super popular. So I will regularly buy a ticket from the booth when I walk up. And the first thing they always say is like, where do you want to sit? And I go, well, it depends on the time of day. If it's an afternoon game, I say not in the sun, wherever that
Yes.
that's anyone
Yeah.
who knows me knows I should not
Yeah.
sit in the sun.
Yep.
But usually my answer is whatever's cheapest in the stadium. I don't care.
Sure.
Whatever's cheapest and has a decent view. Don't put me in the outfield. I'm fine with that.
No. One of we talked a little bit ahead of time about one of your links for the Tuesday
Hmm.
update. What is it? Five articles about economics. What's you have a catchy title for your
I just call them the
Tuesday.
Tuesday links. It's
The Tuesday links. Okay.
five things
Uh,
about teaching or economics that people
yeah.
might find interesting.
But one of them was on the average pay, like the 10 worst paying college majors, which um
Thanks New York Fed is who produces that publication.
yeah, and the one of the those majors, I don't know if it was called fine arts or theater arts or something like that, but theater going it's an industry kind of like sports in many ways. Like, the elites can really make a lot of money, but working in sports
Yeah.
sounds amazing. So the supply of
Performing
people,
arts.
the supply of people who would love to be in the performing arts
Yeah.
greatly exceeds the demand for performing arts. And because of that, of course, that was one of the salaries that's a little bit lower on that. And I'm hearing from people who are in theater, it's can be a tough way to make a living for those involved. Is Tony, I mean, Broadway actors, if you make it on Broadway, right? I mean, this is the pinnacle. I mean, this is something you'll be able to brag, like you've been on Broadway. There are some stars who can make more, but there's a Broadway minimum because of the union, and it's about 2 grand a week.
Hmm.
Which, hey, maybe I think it might even be up to 2,500 a week or something like that. Which, hey, that's a good salary.
Yeah.
But you are in New York, so it's not like you're in a low cost of living area, and you've hit the peak, and shows open and close all the time, so you might be in and out of shows. So it's I talking about this and at the same time seeing that as one of them. So I love that people want to do it. Right, there's non-monetary benefits to majors, but for those who make that choice, they are really many are making a big sacrifice to kind of go into that lifestyle.
I was thinking about that while I was watching The Come From Behind because one of the things that stood out to me was how young everyone was, even though sort of the story is about,
The,
regular adults in a town in Canada. And I'm sitting there
yep.
going, these people are all pretty young. Right. And it's sort of connecting the dots on like, yeah, because this isn't necessarily a well-paying typical position. And At a certain age, you might care more about settling down, having a family, things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think really stood out to me, and I think about it as like one of the cool parts of our job, but they get to do it sort of like on steroids instead. One
Yeah.
of the cool parts of our job is we get to go to all these random cities and we get paid to go visit cities for a few days. And I get to go try the local cuisine and go to sporting
Yeah.
events. To be fair, they're not getting to do all of that, but it is sort of interesting. I think a younger version of me that would be comfortable at a smaller salary, just
Would
getting to travel around for and see different cities.
would have loved. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's being on Broadway, which you're staying in New York,
Yeah.
or
I'm talking
going
about
on.
the touring, sorry, the touring version. Yeah.
But the tours, you can do well because your lodging's covered.
All
So a
right.
number of people who do the tours, like let their lease go and say, okay, I'll be 6 months on the road. And so then they don't have to pay rent for 6 months. On
Mhm.
top of getting the per diems for food, on top of getting paid, your
Yeah.
expenses can be incredibly low.
Well, and I
So
was thinking about this as like a show that's on like on a cruise ship, where you're getting off in all these ports and you're getting to hang out during the day,
yeah,
and then you go back and perform in the evening. Unless you're in one of the weird ones where you have to perform in multiple shows,
sure,
those
sure.
people
Yeah.
are crazy. I don't know how they do it.
Yep.
Where the random guitar singer, I don't know how he's in six different things all over
All
the
the
place.
things.
Right, but if you're in one of the actual plays, there's sort of a travel element that's really fun. But then also I can imagine that by the time you hit a certain age, you go, I'm done going to Pocatello, Idaho. Let
I,
me
I, I
let
need
me
to be in
settle
one
down.
spot. I need to be in one spot.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. So we're probably at about the time to start thinking about a pop culture clip to end
we were
on.
talking about we're talking about Broadway
We
shows.
are talking about it. I can go right away because there's a very easy segue for me if you
I
want to.
should just be like, there's this really great book called Broadway Economics, and I think it's
Well,
a wonderful book. Uh,
great book. You
it's
can't go wrong.
one of my
Uh,
favorite books.
Dead Outlaw, and I'm
Okay.
going to get the song on there. This is pretty much told right away, but it's the real story of Elmer McCurdy, I believe is his name, and he was a pretty unsuccessful outlaw in life, and then he died in about 1910, and he was buried in 1977. And his body goes on some adventures after that. And it's a true story and it's fascinating. But
Interesting.
there was a market for his body. And people were like, there's a couple, there's just one fantastic song that's out now. They only released part of the soundtrack. And the coroner is singing about how he's now an entrepreneur and he's going to be selling the opportunity for people to come see the dead outlaw with a gun in his hand for 2 bits, quarter. And it's just it's a unique I said the show's quirky. It's a very quirky show, but that's an interesting, I saw that often I try to not think what is econ every time a song comes out.
Right.
That one sometimes it's just so obvious. I'm like, oh yeah, that one I'm gonna have to put onto Broadway economics. So
That's a good transition, Matt. I am not going to sit with here. I'm not going to sit with you and try to come up with a pop culture clip related to Broadway
please, okay,
when
that's
I'm
fair.
sitting in front of the man who does Broadway econ. So my pop culture contribution will just be, if you have not realized it yet, Matt operates Broadway musical econ.com, I think is the full title.
BroadwayEconomics.com.
Broadway Economics. I always just
Yep.
Google it. So it's
Okay, yeah.
Broadway Economics. It is a great, he has a book, which I have read, and I'm pretty sure I checked it on Goodreads. So you're
Oh, thank you.
going to put me
You're
on
the
the
you're the
spot.
one.
I
No,
might be,
I don't even I went on Goodreads once or twice, but I don't check things in there.
now you got me kind of curious. I don't actually, maybe I don't know if I've checked this in.
Yeah.
I do own the book, so I think when you published it, I did purchase it. Oh yeah, I gave, you do have a rating. I have actually not read it, but I do own your book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You have 4 stars right now.
Okay.
Um, and which means I need to go out and I need to
I
go.
need a
You know
five
what?
star.
You have one 5 star, one 3 star.
Okay.
I will go read your book and I will give you a an honest rating.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, as long as it's a good, honest rating. Um, but no, I appreciate anybody. If I'd love to hear for those, you know, have gone. If you have any tips and tricks for getting cheap tickets, let us know. Also, if you have shows, there's a whole lot of shows I haven't seen. If you've seen something that you think if you know something Jadrian should see when he's there in a
Mm,
month,
please tell me.
and I live 3 hours, so there will be a number of trips back in the summer to try to catch a lot of these. And there's a couple shows from last year's Tony Awards that we still haven't seen. So those,
Yeah.
and speaking of cheaper ticket prices, those are now starting to drop in price. So it's good stuff. But we, yeah, no, this is fun. Well, you, I
I
drink
got a
way faster than
no,
you
but I
do.
got a tall one, right? So I've got
True, true.
I basically had like 1.5 beers.
The Perpetual was outstanding. The pickle
It's
beer
delicious. It's
was outstanding. Thank you to everybody for listening. We please send us show suggestions, comments, 5-star reviews. We love all of that. And any parting words of wisdom.
I was gonna throw in until next time, Matt.
Cheers.
Cheers. Clink 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 clink
Clink.
clink clink.
I try to clink on the note. It just
All
doesn't.
right.
Let's see here.
That was
Stop.
a good episode.
That was fun. Now where do I stop?
I
Stop.
think we sufficiently